In this video, I'll guide you through transforming a photograph like this into a finished pencil portrait. We'll go step by step, starting with setting up your document, creating an initial sketch, and finally shading the portrait. By the end, you'll have a completed drawing you can proudly call your own. So let's get started. Setting up the Photoshop document. Start by creating a new Photoshop document. Change pixels to centimeters and change dimensions to 15 × 18 centimeters. Next, copy the photograph and paste this into your new 15 by 18 canvas. Change this to a smart object by right-clicking the layer and selecting Convert to Smart Object. This ensures the image quality stays consistent when resized. You're going to add grid lines to the image, making it far easier to draw later on. Position the photograph to a placement of your choosing, and then draw grid lines from the top and side. Next, draw a rectangle and position the box top left, making sure it's flush with the guides and sides of the canvas. Use shortcut Command/Control+T. Change the width to 50%, making sure the chain or link is checked to the right of this. This makes the box halved in size. Draw guides to create a 4x4 grid, like shown. Use the Align tool buttons at the top to position your box in the corners by using shortcut Command or Control-A to see those options. You should now have a grid of 4x4 set up. Delete the rectangle layer, and I've also changed the position of the photograph so the composition is more engaging. Setting up the drawing. Use a hard pencil for this stage. I'm using a 2H pencil. It's important to create a canvas size which is exactly the same as the Photoshop file. In this case, it's 15 × 18 centimeters. After your box has been drawn, halve the height and width, and halve again to create your boxes. So starting with 15 × 18, halved is 7.5 × 9 centimeters. And then halved again is 3.75 × 4.5 centimeters. You should be left with a 4x4 grid. Now you're ready to start drawing. Starting the drawing. It's far easier to see different tones for a black and white image than from a color image. You can do this in Adobe Photoshop by clicking on Image, Adjustments, Hue/Saturation, and reducing the saturation bar to -100. Focus on drawing straight lines first, mapping out where everything sits within the image, including the hairline, facial features, and where they sit. Keep looking at the drawing and the photograph, and pay close attention to where the facial placements sit in relation to the grid lines. It's much easier to draw with grid lines, so hopefully this is all helping you. Keep everything as simple as possible. Begin to map out the facial features like I am here. It's really important to keep checking your drawing and the photograph. Pay close attention to how things align to one another. Where does the ear sit in relation to the eyes? What angle is the side of the face? Where does the left eye intersect with the grid lines? I'm keeping my pencil pressure quite light here, again focusing on the big shapes and also straight lines. Don't worry about the details at this stage. This part of the drawing is geared towards making sure everything is in the right place. Erase, redraw, and see how I draw the portrait if you're stuck. The grid technique has been used by artists for centuries to create accurate and proportionate drawings, particularly for portraits and large-scale artworks. Some of the most famous artists who employed this technique include Leonardo da Vinci, Vermeer to Vincent van Gogh. So you're in good company. help you notice any errors, turn your drawing and the photograph upside down and correct your drawing if you feel it needs it. You should then be left with a drawing similar to this. You can erase any errors and refine your facial features until they look like mine. Once you're happy with the placement of the portrait drawing, it's time to add shading. Begin with the left eye, keeping it very simple. I'm using a 4B and 9B here, but choose a soft pencil if you have them. Shade around the eye. The darkest tones from this photograph come from the eye iris, hair and neck. Move on to the eyebrows with a dark tone, and then the right eye and eyebrows. If you're struggling or want some extra tips and advice, give me a comment below. I'll be more than happy to help you out. At this stage, it would be a great idea to erase the lines, which I totally forgot to do before the shading began. So erase those lines that you see. Go back into the shading process and start with the nose, shading dark underneath the nostrils and adding a light tone to the side of the nose. Next up is the mouth. Add a dark tone or line in between the mouth, and then add a mid-tone shade on the upper lip and a dark tone underneath. Then add shading to the side of the face and neck. Shaded dark tone for the hair, again being simple in your shading, and drawing in the direction of the hair. Don't hesitate to rotate your drawing as you work, especially when tackling tricky angles or difficult lines. Sometimes turning your paper can give you a fresh perspective and make it easier to achieve smoother, more precise strokes. You'll notice in my drawing process that I rotate the page on its side, particularly when drawing long, curved lines. This not only helps with accuracy, but also improves line quality by allowing my hand to move in a more natural, comfortable direction. Always prioritize your comfort to ensure consistent, clean results. When drawing hair, it's easy to get caught up in individual strands, but this can make the process overwhelming and less effective. Instead, focus on capturing the direction and flow of the hair in larger chunks and or masses. This approach simplifies the process and helps you create more realistic looking hair without getting lost in the details. Use confident, sweeping lines to suggest volume and movement. If you find yourself struggling, it's okay to simplify your approach and gradually build the details on top once you have the overall shape down. Add shading to the ear and add more and more details to the entire face. Don't forget to shade the background too.
One comes around.
Don't worry about the arms and the hands in the background. Let's just ignore this one. If you ever get stuck, just watch how I draw and try to replicate it. Remember, have fun. If your drawing isn't turning out as you've imagined, it's all part of the learning process. Don't be too hard on yourself. You can always retry the portrait as many times as needed and go back in this video to see how I drew it. Mistakes are just opportunities to improve.
Two out the door, then you have magic.
Give me a comment below. If you're getting stuck, I'd love to help you out. One of the keys to a striking portrait is balancing light and shadow. As you continue shading, ask yourself, where are the darkest areas of the photographs compared to the lightest? Identifying these contrasts will help bring depth and dimension to your drawing. Don't be afraid to go dark in areas like the shadows under the chin or around the eyes, while keeping the highlights bright. Gradually build up the tones, layer them softly to avoid harsh transitions. Focus on the overall values to give the portrait a realistic and cohesive look, continuing to refine as you go. Your finished portrait drawing. And there you have it. You can apply these techniques such as grid lines to your future portraits too. I hope you're happy with your drawing. Leave a comment to let me know how it turned out below. Highly recommend you checking out this video to enhance your drawing skill even further.